Millionaire gets lost on the subway and sees a girl with the face of his daughter who disappeared 6 years ago. Michael Thompson had never set foot on a subway in his entire life as a successful businessman. At 52, he had always relied on a private driver to take him anywhere in New York City. But that Tuesday, after yet another devastating argument with Jennifer about their daughter's upcoming 15th birthday, he stormed out of the house and ended up at the wrong station. The train was packed during the evening rush hour. Michael squeezed between exhausted workers, noisy students, and street vendors. That's when his eyes landed on a teenage girl with straight brown hair sitting in the corner of the car with a box of candy in her lap. His heart stopped. Those delicate features, those light green eyes, they were identical to Emily's, his daughter who had vanished 6 years ago. The girl looked about 14 and wore a faded green shirt. When she noticed Michael staring, she quickly lowered her eyes and shrank further into her seat. He tried to move closer, but the car was too crowded. At the next stop, she hurriedly stood up and rushed off, dropping a small metal bracelet on the floor. Michael picked it up with trembling hands. It was nearly identical to the one he had given Emily on her 8th birthday, engraved with a tiny heart. He got off at the following station and searched the platform for the girl, but she had disappeared into the crowd. That night, Michael barely slept. Jennifer sensed something was off, but he didn't tell her what had happened. He knew she wouldn't believe him, and it would only worsen their already strained relationship. Since Emily's disappearance, their marriage had become a cycle of blame and painful silence. The next day, Michael cancelled all his meetings and returned to the subway. He spent hours riding from station to station, searching for the girl. He did this all week, always at the same time, hoping to see her again. Then on Thursday, he found her. She was at Union Square Station, selling candy to passengers climbing the stairs. Beside her stood a thin, weary-looking man in his 40s, watching her every move. "Hurry up, Abigail, you haven't even sold half yet," the man said, nudging her by the arm. Michael approached slowly, pretending to be interested in the candy. "How much?" he asked, looking directly at her. The girl glanced up for a second, and he was certain. It was the same face, the same delicate mannerisms Emily had as a child. $2 each, she replied softly. "I'll take 10, Michael said, handing her a $50 bill. "Keep the change." The man immediately intervened. "No need, sir, I'll give you the exact change." "No, let her keep it," Michael insisted. "What's your name, sweetheart?" The girl opened her mouth to answer, but the man yanked her arm. "Come on, Abigail. We have to go." Michael followed them at a distance. He watched as they boarded a bus headed for the east side outskirts. He noted the bus number and, the next day, took the same route. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us out as we're just starting. Now, back to the story. The bus stopped in a modest neighborhood, full of small houses and dirt roads. Michael got off a few stops later and walked back, searching for them. He found the girl sitting on the sidewalk outside a rundown little house, sketching in an old notebook. He hid behind a car and watched. She drew with complete focus, lost in her own world. When an elderly woman stepped out of the house next door, Michael approached her. "Excuse me, ma'am, that girl over there, has she lived on this street for a long time?" The neighbor, Mrs. Margaret, looked at Abigail and sighed. "Poor thing. She arrived here as a little girl about 6 years ago. Derek said she was his niece, that her parents had been in an accident, but the girl couldn't remember anything, not even her own last name properly." Michael's heart raced. She didn't remember anything. Nothing at all. She only knew her first name and kept repeating a piece of an address no one could understand. She talked about a house with a pool, about a white dog, but in a confused way, like it was from a dream. "And this Derek, is he good to her?" Mrs. Margaret shook her head. "At first he was, but now he's sick, can't work properly anymore. That's why he sends the girl out to sell candy on the street. She's studious, you know. I always see her here drawing or reading something she borrowed from the school library." Michael thanked her and walked away, but he couldn't stop thinking about what he'd heard. Fragments of an address, a house with a pool, a white dog, all of it perfectly described the mansion where he'd lived with Jennifer and Emily before the disappearance. They'd had a golden retriever named Bailey, who had died of grief 2 years after Emily vanished. That night, he couldn't keep the secret any longer. He told Jennifer everything, who at first reacted with disbelief and then with a rage he'd never seen before. "Have you lost your mind, Michael? Isn't the pain we've carried for 6 years enough? Now you're going to chase after girls on the street, thinking they're our daughter." "Jennifer, I saw her. It's her. I'm sure of it." "You're sure of nothing," Jennifer shouted, tears in her eyes. "Our daughter is gone, Michael, gone. And I won't go through this agony again because you're seeing things that aren't there." The argument lasted into the early hours. Jennifer threatened to leave if he kept up this sick obsession. Michael tried to show her the bracelet he'd found, but she refused to look. The next day, Michael sought out a private investigator. Robert Wilson had over 20 years of experience in missing persons cases. He listened carefully to the whole story and agreed to investigate. "Mr. Thompson, I'll be honest with you. Cases like this are very delicate. Sometimes desperation makes us see what we want to see. But I'll investigate properly, do all the necessary checks." Robert managed to get information about Derek Miller, 41 years old, unemployed for 2 years, with a history of odd jobs. He had no criminal record, but there were also no official records of him having a niece. The girl was registered as Abigail Miller, but only from the age of 8. "This is very strange, Mr. Thompson," Robert said during a meeting. "There are no documents for her before that age. It's like she appeared out of nowhere." Michael felt a mix of hope and despair. He asked Robert to get a photo of the girl without her noticing. When he saw the image, he was absolutely certain. Even with a more mature face, thinner from hardship, it was Emily. But he needed more proof. Robert discovered that Abigail attended a public school in the neighborhood. Michael started going there, always keeping his distance, just to watch her. He saw how quiet she was, how she walked with tense shoulders, how her eyes seemed to carry a sadness far beyond her years. One afternoon, he saw her sitting alone in the schoolyard, drawing in the same old notebook. He got close enough to see the drawing and nearly cried out. It was a big house, with a pool, a garden, and a dog. It was exactly the house they'd lived in before. "That's a beautiful drawing," he said, startling the girl. "Sorry, sir. You can't stay here at the school if you're not a student's parent." "I just wanted to see your drawing. It's a very beautiful house. Do you know this house?" Abigail looked at the drawing and then at him, her expression confused. "I don't know, sir. I always draw this house, but I don't know why. It's like it lives in my head." "And the dog? Do you remember the dog?" Her eyes filled with tears. "I dream about him, a big yellow dog that ran really fast, but I don't know if it's real or if I made it up." Michael had to step away before she noticed he was crying too. That night, he showed Jennifer the photos Robert had taken. For the first time in weeks, she looked. She stayed silent for long minutes, studying every detail of the girl's face. "Michael," she whispered. "She has her eyes. She tilts her head the same way when she's thinking. It's her, Jennifer. It's our Emily." Jennifer began to cry in a way Michael hadn't seen in years. It was a cry of pain, but also of a fragile hope she had buried long ago. "But what if it's not? What if we're fooling ourselves? I won't survive another disappointment." "We'll do a DNA test," Michael said. "We'll make sure." The problem was how to get genetic material from the girl without raising suspicions. Robert suggested Michael try to get closer to Derek, maybe by offering help. Michael returned to the neighborhood and looked for Derek. He found him in a small workshop, trying to make a living fixing bicycles. The man was visibly ill, coughing heavily and struggling to move. "Mr. Derek, my name is Michael. I saw your niece selling candy in the subway and got worried. A girl so young." Derek eyed him with suspicion. "Are you a social worker?" No, just a father who cares about children. I'd like to help in some way." "We don't need charity," Derek said, but Michael could tell he was fighting between pride and need. "It's not charity, it's solidarity. I have a daughter, and I know how hard it is to raise a child alone." Derek studied him for a moment. "You have a daughter?" "I did," Michael said, not entirely lying. "That's why I want to help other children." Slowly, Derek opened up. He told him Abigail had appeared at the Port Authority bus terminal 6 years ago, completely lost and frightened. She couldn't remember anything except her first name and kept repeating fragments of words that made no sense. I took her to the police, to the authorities, but no one had records of a missing child matching her description. She stayed in a shelter for a few days, but she was too scared. Since I'd just lost my wife and was alone, I offered to take care of her. You registered her as your niece? I did what I could to give her an identity. It wasn't easy, but I managed. She needed to go to school, she needed documents. Michael realized that however irregular the situation was, Derek truly cared for Abigail. And she never got her memory back? Some things come back in pieces. She has nightmares sometimes, dreams about people she can't identify, but nothing clear enough for us to understand where she came from. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing, over the following weeks, Michael visited Derek several times, always bringing something. Cough medicine, food, school supplies for Abigail. Little by little, he earned their trust. Abigail was wary at first, but began getting used to his presence. Michael was careful not to ask direct questions about her past, but watched every reaction, every familiar gesture. One afternoon, she was drawing at the kitchen table when he arrived. It was the same drawing as always, the house with a pool. "Can I ask why you always draw this house?" Abigail stopped drawing and stared at the paper. "I don't know how to explain. It's like it's important, you know? Like I need to remember it, but at the same time, it gives me a bad feeling in my chest." "What kind of feeling?" "Like I lost something very important in that house, or like someone very special stayed there." Michael had to leave the kitchen to hide his emotions. Derek was getting sicker. The medicine Michael brought helped, but it was clear he needed serious medical treatment. Michael offered to pay for a private doctor, but Derek refused. "Why are you doing this? You don't know me. You don't know Abigail. Why so much kindness?" Michael thought about telling the truth, but he still wasn't sure enough. "Because we all deserve help when we need it, and because Abigail reminds me of someone very special." Just then, Abigail walked into the room. "Who do I remind you of?" Michael looked at her and made an impulsive decision. "My daughter. You remind me so much of my daughter." "Where is she?" She got lost a few years ago, and since then, I've been looking for her." Abigail studied him carefully. "Do you think I could be her?" The question was so direct that Michael was speechless. Derek also grew tense. "Abigail, don't say things like that," Derek said. "But Uncle, what if it's true? What if Mr. Thompson is really my father?" "Do you remember anything about your parents?" Michael asked gently. "Sometimes I dream of a blonde woman who sang me to sleep, and a man in a suit who took me swimming in a big pool, but I can't see their faces clearly." Michael's legs nearly gave way. Jennifer had blonde hair and always sang Emily to sleep, and he really used to take his daughter swimming in the house's pool every weekend. "Sweetheart, would you like to take a test to find out if we're family?" Derek stood up nervously. "Hold on, you can't just show up and want to take the girl like that." "I don't want to take anyone. I just want to find out the truth. If she's not my daughter, I'll keep helping you both as I have been. If she is, we'll talk about what's best for her." Abigail looked at Derek. "Uncle, I want to know. I've always wanted to know where I came from." Derek was clearly torn between his love for Abigail and his fear of losing her. "And if she is your daughter, will you take her away from me?" "Derek, you took care of her when she needed it most. That will never be forgotten. We'll find a way for everyone to be okay." After much discussion, Derek agreed to the DNA test. Michael arranged everything at a private clinic, ensuring complete discretion. The days waiting for the results were agonizing. Michael could barely work, Jennifer was constantly on edge, and Abigail kept asking questions about what it would be like if she discovered she had other parents. Derek fell ill that week and had to be hospitalized. Abigail was desperate, and Michael offered to take care of her temporarily. For the first time in 6 years, Jennifer agreed to meet the girl. They arranged to meet in a park, neutral ground. Jennifer arrived visibly nervous, her hands shaking. When she saw Abigail from afar, she stopped in her tracks. "My God, Michael, it's her. It's our girl." But when they got closer, Jennifer composed herself. She greeted Abigail politely, trying not to show the storm of emotions inside. Throughout the afternoon, she watched the girls' every move. When Abigail asked for a strawberry ice cream, Jennifer nearly cried. It was Emily's favorite flavor. When she tucked her hair behind her right ear, exactly as Emily used to do when she was focused, Jennifer had to step away to keep from breaking down. "She has our habits, Michael," Jennifer said when they were alone for a moment. "The way she bites her lip when she's thinking, the way she taps her foot when she's anxious. It's her. I know it's her." But Jennifer was also startled by the differences. Abigail was more reserved than Emily, more careful with her words, more distrustful. 6 years of hardship had changed the girl's personality. When they returned home that night, Jennifer cried as she hadn't in years. What if she doesn't recognize us as her parents? What if she prefers to stay with Derek? "We'll figure it out together," Michael said, holding his wife. The DNA results arrived on a Thursday morning. Michael went to the clinic himself, his hands shaking as he opened the envelope. Match, 99.97%. It was conclusive. Abigail was Emily, their daughter who had disappeared 6 years ago. Michael called Jennifer, who was at work. "It's her, Jennifer. It's our daughter." On the other end of the line, Jennifer broke down in tears. She left the office immediately and went home, where they held each other for hours, crying and trying to process the mix of joy and pain they felt. Now they had to tell Abigail and Derek, who had already been discharged from the hospital. They went to his house together. Derek was in the living room, still weak, and Abigail was doing homework at the kitchen table. "The results are in," Michael said. Abigail dropped her pencil and ran over. "Well, are we family?" Michael knelt to her level. "Yes, sweetheart. You're our daughter. Your real name is Emily Thompson, and we've been looking for you for 6 years." Abigail fell silent for a long moment, processing the information. Then she looked at Jennifer. "Are you my mum?" Jennifer couldn't speak, only nodding. "Why don't I remember you?" "Sometimes when we go through very hard times, our minds erase memories to protect us," Michael explained. "But that doesn't mean the love is gone." Abigail looked at Derek, who was crying silently. "What about Uncle Derek?" "He'll always be your Uncle Derek," Jennifer said, speaking for the first time. "He took care of you when we couldn't. He's family too." In the days that followed, they began a delicate transition. Abigail started visiting Michael and Jennifer's house for a few hours each day, slowly getting to know the place where she had spent her first 8 years. The house had changed little. Her room was exactly as it had been when she disappeared, preserved like a shrine. When Abigail entered, she stood in the doorway for several minutes. "I remember this room," she said softly. "I remember that doll on the shelf and the bed with the flower sheets." It was the first concrete sign that her memories might return. Jennifer had found a psychologist specializing in trauma and memory loss. Dr. Sarah explained that recovery would be slow and that they shouldn't force anything. Her mind built a barrier to protect itself. With time, love, and patience, some memories may come back, but it's also possible some may never fully return. During therapy sessions, fragments began to surface. Abigail remembered the dog Bailey, the smell of Jennifer's Saturday cakes, the lullaby she used to sing at bedtime. "I remember a song," she said during one session. "Sleep, sleep, my treasure, for Mommy is here." It was exactly the lullaby Jennifer had sung to her as a child. Jennifer began to hum softly, and Abigail closed her eyes as if being rocked by the memories. Derek was part of the whole process. Despite the pain of knowing he would lose Abigail, he understood this was best for her. Michael and Jennifer insisted that he remain part of the girl's life. "You saved our daughter when she needed it most," Jennifer said to Derek. "How could we not be forever grateful?" They arranged the best medical treatment for Derek, who was diagnosed with treatable chronic pneumonia. With proper care, he recovered well. 3 months after the discovery, Abigail made a decision. "I want to live with you," she told Michael and Jennifer, "but Uncle Derek has to live nearby so I can visit him every day." Michael bought a small, comfortable house on the same street where they lived, just for Derek. This way, Abigail could maintain the two important bonds in her life. The adjustment wasn't easy. Abigail still had frequent nightmares, moments of anxiety, and trouble fully trusting. But little by little, with love and patience, the family began to rebuild. Jennifer temporarily left her job to focus entirely on helping Abigail adjust. They spent hours together cooking, talking, trying to restore the mother-daughter relationship that had been interrupted. "Sometimes I feel like two different people," Abigail told the therapist. "The Emily you all knew and the Abigail I've become. I don't know how to bring them together." "You don't have to choose one or the other," Dr. Sarah explained. "You can be both. Your experiences with Derek are also part of who you are now." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. A year after the reunion, the family had found a new balance. Abigail, who now went by both names, Emily Abigail Thompson, had adjusted well to the new private school Michael had chosen. She kept up the high grades she'd always had and made new friends. Derek became a constant presence in the house. He had dinner with them 3 times a week and spent every Sunday with the family. Michael had offered him a job at the company in maintenance, where he quickly excelled. "I never thought my life would take this turn," Derek said during one of their dinners. "When I found Abigail at the bus terminal, I was lost too. Taking care of her gave me purpose." "And you gave us our daughter back," Jennifer replied. "We're the ones who should be thankful." Abigail's memories returned gradually, but not all of them. She clearly remembered her parents, the house, the dog Bailey, but the day of her disappearance remained a complete mystery. It was during a family therapy session that a clue emerged. Dr. Sarah suggested they visit the Port Authority bus terminal, the place where Derek had found Abigail. "Sometimes returning to where it all began can trigger important memories," she explained. The following Saturday, they all went to the terminal together. Abigail grew visibly tense upon entering, but couldn't explain why. "I remember being very scared," she said, "and looking for someone, but I couldn't remember who." They walked through the corridors, passing the bus platforms. When they reached the area for arrivals from state trips, Abigail suddenly stopped. "I remember this place," she said, pointing to a specific bench. "I sat there crying. I was waiting for someone who never came." Michael and Jennifer exchanged glances. They had never considered the possibility that Emily had gone to the terminal on her own. "Sweetheart, can you remember why you went there?" Jennifer asked gently. Abigail closed her eyes, concentrating. I wanted to visit someone important. But when I got there, they weren't there." "Who did you want to visit?" "An older woman, who used to tell me stories." Suddenly, Michael understood everything. "Your grandmother Dorothy," he exclaimed. "My mother. You ran away from home to visit your grandmother Dorothy." The memories began to connect in Abigail's mind. Dorothy, her paternal grandmother, lived in a small town and always said Emily could visit her whenever she wanted. On the day she disappeared, after a fight with Jennifer about something she couldn't even remember, Emily had decided to go to her grandmother's. "I took the money from my piggy bank and came here," said Abigail, the memories slowly returning. "But when I got here, I realized I didn't know the name of the town where Grandma lived. I only knew it was far away and that I had to take a bus." "And you got lost at the Port Authority bus terminal," Derek finished. "I was too scared to go home because I knew you'd be mad at me for running away. And the longer I stayed away, the more afraid I got." Michael remembered the day she disappeared. Emily had asked to go to a friend's house and Jennifer had allowed it. When they went to pick her up that evening, they discovered she had lied and never made it there. They never imagined she'd ended up at a bus terminal. "Why didn't you ask an adult for help?" Jennifer asked. "I was scared of the police, of social workers. I was afraid they'd take me somewhere I'd never see you again. I'd rather hide, sleeping on benches, eating whatever I could find." "That's how I found you," Derek said. "You were sleeping under a staircase, and you'd been there for days." The truth brought relief, but also a new wave of complicated feelings. Jennifer felt guilty for not realizing her daughter was so upset she'd run away. Michael wondered if he'd been present enough as a father. "None of this is your fault," Abigail said, sensing their emotions. "I was just a kid who did something stupid. And if it hadn't happened, I never would have met Uncle Derek, who taught me so much about being strong and taking care of the people we love." Family therapy continued for a few more months, helping everyone process their feelings and build a new family dynamic. Michael and Jennifer learned to cherish every moment with their daughter even more, while Abigail learned to trust her parents' unconditional love again. 2 years after the reunion, the family decided to move to a new house, not too far from the old one, but in a place that symbolized a fresh start for everyone. It was smaller than the mansion they'd lived in before, cozier and more practical. "We don't need a huge house to be happy," Jennifer said as they decorated their new home. "We just need a place where everyone feels at home." The new house had a barbecue area where they held family gatherings every weekend. Derek was always there, along with some close family friends. Abigail had grown into a confident teenager, keeping her grades up and developing a talent for drawing. "I want to study architecture," she said during one of their family gatherings. "I want to design houses where families can be happy, like we are now." Michael had shifted his professional priorities, delegating more responsibilities so he could be more present in his daughter's life. Jennifer went back to work but part-time, always making sure she'd be there when Abigail needed her. "You know what I've learned from all this?" Michael said during one of their family therapy sessions. "Family isn't just about DNA, it's about love, care, and being there. Derek is as much a father to Abigail as I am." "And I've learned that losing something doesn't mean we won't find it again," Jennifer said. "Sometimes we lose things so we can learn to appreciate them more when we get them back." Dorothy, who had developed memory problems in recent years, was brought to live closer to the family. During one of her visits to the new house, she looked at Abigail and smiled. "Emily, my dear granddaughter, you've grown so much, but your eyes are still the same." It was one of the few moments of clarity from her grandmother, which didn't last long, but was enough to move the whole family. On the 3rd anniversary of their reunion, they threw a special party. Abigail had insisted on inviting Mrs. Margaret, the neighbor who had told Michael about her, and several others who had been part of the journey. "Every person we met along the way had a purpose," Abigail said during her speech at the party. "Uncle Derek, who saved me when I was lost. Mrs. Margaret, who always looked out for me from afar. Mr. Robert, the detective who helped my parents find me. All of you are part of my story." During the party, Michael remembered the day he had entered the subway for the first time, completely lost and desperate. Who would have thought that confusion would be the start of the greatest miracle of his life? "Do you know what's the most amazing thing about this whole story?" Jennifer said to Michael as they watched Abigail chatting animatedly with the guests. "What?" "That she became a better person than she would have been if none of this had happened. The 8-year-old Emily was spoiled, had everything easy. The Abigail who came back to us is strong, generous, and knows the value of simple things." Michael agreed. The daughter they had regained was different from the one they had lost, but it was a positive difference. The hardships she had faced, though painful, had given her a rare maturity and sensitivity for her age. "She didn't lose her innocence," Michael observed. "She gained wisdom." At the end of the party, when everyone had left, the family gathered in the living room to talk. It was a tradition they had developed. Whenever there was a special occasion, they would sit together to share their feelings and reflections. "Dad, can I ask you something?" Abigail said. "Of course, sweetheart." "If you could change anything about what happened, would you?" Michael thought for a moment. "I'd change the suffering you went through, the suffering we went through. But I wouldn't change the final outcome. I wouldn't change finding you, meeting Derek, or learning the lessons we did." "What about you, Mom?" Jennifer smiled. "I'd change how it happened, but not what it taught us. I learned to be a better mother, a better wife, a better person." "And you, Uncle Derek?" Abigail asked. Derek, sitting in an armchair nearby, wiped away a tear that had fallen. "I wouldn't change a thing, Abigail, not a single thing. Because if anything had been different, maybe I wouldn't have been lucky enough to be your father for those few years. And those were the best years of my life." Abigail stood up and hugged each of them, one by one. "Then we're a complete family," she said. "Different from what we planned, but complete." That night, after everyone had gone to bed, Michael stayed on the porch, gazing at the stars. Jennifer joined him. "What are you thinking about?" "I'm thinking about how funny fate is. If I hadn't fought with you that day, I wouldn't have stormed out of the house. If I hadn't stormed out, I wouldn't have taken the wrong subway. If I hadn't taken the wrong subway, we wouldn't have found our daughter," Jennifer finished. "Sometimes the worst situations lead us to the best places. It's true. And sometimes we need to get lost to find what really matters." They stood there in silence, contemplating the life they had rebuilt together. In the next room, Abigail slept soundly, surrounded by drawings she had made of the new house, the new family, the new dreams. On her nightstand was the bracelet Michael had found on the subway that first day, next to a photo of the whole family reunited. It was the perfect symbol of a story that had begun with loss and turned into an even more precious reunion. In the morning, they would wake up to another day of normal life. Family breakfast, Abigail getting ready for school, Michael going to work, Jennifer taking care of the house and grandmother Dorothy, Derek stopping by for coffee with them before heading to his job. These were small moments that, 6 years ago, had seemed impossible to ever experience again. But there they were, living each day as a gift, knowing that family is the most precious thing anyone can have. And when people asked Michael how he had managed to find his daughter after so long, he always gave the same answer. "It wasn't me who found her. It was love that found us." The end of the story. Now tell us what you thought of this story of reunion and overcoming. Do you believe that family love can conquer any distance or time? Share your thoughts in the comments and subscribe to the channel for more heartwarming stories that touch the soul. Thank you for being with us.